the main character is Holling. Mrs. Baker dislike Holling, and Holling dislike Miss Baker.
Right.
And because Mrs. Baker hate his guts.
Well, Holling thinks that, right? Holling thinks she hates his guts.
Yes. Holling and Mrs. Baker became intimate
Together. Oh, how did that happen? Was there an event that actually caused that?
Then Holling took a part of a play which it was Shakespeare, and he was a part of a fairy.
He was going to be a fairy in, I believe it was Midsummer's Night Dream. Is that right?
Yes. And Holling didn't like anybody see it because he think it is disgusting.
He had to wear a costume. Now, can you tell me why he had to be part of the play? Do you remember why he had to take part in the play?
I don't know exactly.
I think it had something to do with the cream puffs, right?
Oh, yes.
At first was relieved, but later, when he came to school, there were the pictures of him wearing that. He was wearing that fairy costume, and that his photos were stuck on bulletin boards and other places in school, which made him embarrassed. The same book can have different interpretation. How people can feel differently about the same book, depending on their situation and other things. So pay attention to how interpretation of Romeo and Juliet that are coming up. I want you to pay attention to how he feels about them and why he feels that. So when we write a verb, you should write dislikes. You have to put an S after a verb when we're writing in present tense, right?
Yeah.
Because sentence cannot stand by its own, so it has to be attached to another sentence. The book's main character, Holling, dislikes Mrs. Baker because Mrs. Baker hates, this is third person singular again, had to, past tense of have is had. Then he made a promise good. I think you wanted to use the phrase, he made good of his promise. Holling and Mrs. Baker became intimate. I think we're trying to write in past tense, right? Being a Shakespeare play in which he took, past tense of take is took, a part of a fairy. Alright, let's go over some parts you could have improved on. There are some spelling issues. I think you can go over them later. For example, there was Christmas. We also have conjugation issues, especially putting S after verbs for present tense in third person singular. For example, in the beginning, like Holling dislikes or Mrs. Baker hates. I guess you try doing that a little bit later. For example, here